Well, the last 5 years have seen a rise in the number of organisations seeing fit to audit the culture of their organisations, according to our next guest. To discuss the implications, Joydeep Hor, joining us on People and Culture Strategies. Joydeep, welcome. Good to catch up with you again. So, a culture audit, what does that mean?
It's almost a contradiction in terms, isn't it, when we talk about culture, which is something that many would describe as nebulous in an organisational context, something that's more about the vibe of the place, how people are feeling, how people are interacting with each other. So very much that soft nuance of an environment that might be created between colleagues in a particular organisation, juxtaposed with the word audit, which of course smacks of things that are very clinical, very objective, very measurable. But this idea of a culture audit is historically something that has been brought about where boards, leadership teams or senior executives have identified problems that, in my experience, go beyond merely one or two individuals. And the most common catalyst for an organisation initiating a culture audit is when there's been a significant amount of turnover, or there's been a number of complaints or grievances that might have been made against a particular individual in an organisation. And so those who are in decision-making roles sit back and say, maybe there's some broader issues that are at play here. Maybe we need to conduct whether they call it an audit, whether they call it a diagnostic, call it a review, but bring someone in with a view to reporting back to us on whether there are more perhaps systemic issues, or whether there are problems that go deeper or broader than merely one or two people who might have a gripe or an issue about something. So hence this idea of auditing or reviewing a workplace culture or a departmental culture, something that is initiated from those in decision-making roles.
So what are the benefits, and perhaps what are the potential drawbacks?
So I think that if it's properly conducted, and I'd be doing several of these each month and have for many years, if properly conducted, it does allow those in decision-making roles with some insights that are going to be and should be meaningful to them in terms of potentially identifying future risks, future problems. Now, when I say properly conducted, there will be a lot of organisations who would be in the practice of conducting digital surveys, whether they're engagement surveys or other online, or using other online platforms to try to get a sense of how people are feeling. But a proper culture audit does, in my opinion, need to be conducted based on some probing interviews and questions that give people whose culture or whose environment is being audited or reviewed the opportunity to have a conversation and to actually speak their mind freely in relation to things that are happening. And then, of course, there's a qualitative process in terms of, well, you can't just take what people say at face value. You do need to actually push back and get them to explain and provide some data points and justifications for things that could otherwise be put down to them just having a particular sentiment about an individual or about their workload or indeed about their employer. So if it's properly conducted, the organisation can get some really meaningful insights. The danger, however, is, of course, that if you do get those insights, and for example, if it's reported back to you that a particular leader has certain problematic behaviours or traits or stylistic attributes that are less than desirable or might not sit nicely with an organisation's mission and value and purpose or a code of conduct, then it will be incumbent upon those decision makers who have commissioned the audit to do something about it, because not only have they commissioned a particular process and probably incurred some cost, but they've taken up the time of individuals and they've created a platform for those individuals where they've said, look, speak freely, tell us what we want to hear, or tell us what you feel we need to hear. And then if employees don't see that appropriate action is taken, that can be absolutely catastrophic. And I often say to clients, you're better off not doing an exercise such as this than doing it and then not taking the necessary action. So it's very much about how it's positioned to employees, it's about how it's conducted, and critically, what's going to happen once you get the review or the diagnostic back.
So I'm interested in to get your experience there, Joydeep. You say you have conducted several of these. Where do you start? And do you get any pushback?
You often do get pushback. Often the people that are being spoken to or interviewed will be quite sceptical, quite guarded in terms of the information that they share. They know, of course, that if I'm the one conducting it, that I've been engaged by one person or a group of people, that individual's relationship with that group may not be a constructive one. They may have fallen out of favour with that particular group. So all of a sudden, when they see someone from the outside being engaged by that group and it's positioned to them as, speak openly or whatever else, they're going to be a bit jaded or a bit sceptical about doing that. So you do get some resistance to that often initially. And often this is a very strange thing for individuals in any workplace to have to open up to someone who they're probably meeting for the first time, who they might be aware of their background or skill set, but they certainly haven't built any trust with them. So that's part of the challenge in terms of these kinds of exercises. But I think what's really important is that organisations and those who are commissioning these kinds of processes must respect the people who are being spoken to as part of the process. They're not dummies, they're not stupid. They know often why these things are being done. And it's much better for an organisation to be transparent, those decision makers to be very clear about why it is that we're doing it, what is going to happen at the end of it, and then making sure that they follow through with that. If they don't do that, then often you get this malaise that feeds into organisations where every year there's some kind of review or organisational redesign or something, and it's often seen as just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.